Okay, I'm going to try to insert this in. I told you we had not had coffee and it was early. When we were talking about the baking powder in the video, it is teaspoons, 2 teaspoons per cup, which would make it 5 teaspoons since we used 2.5 cups of flour, not tablespoons. But this is where my mom was also talking about it's good measurement. 3 teaspoons equals 1 tablespoon. So when you're doing those conversions, I always Google it because I don't have it in my head. But anyway, it is teaspoons of baking powder. And I wrote that in there, but we both said tablespoons, but he picks up a teaspoon. Very important. Pre-blooper on Learning with Miss Roseberry. Good morning. We are up. Well, the dogs woke me up before the sunrise. Whew, it's early. It's like 8:15 or something. And we are at my dad's house, my parents' house in Eagle Rock, Virginia. And we are going to make, I say we, this is the royal we. My dad's going to make it. I'm going to film it so that maybe one day I can make it. We're going to make biscuit cinnamon rolls. And they are one of my favorite things that he's made in recent years. Okay. I'm getting myself together. Kids, I haven't had my coffee yet, so if I say something that doesn't make sense, that's why. But we'll muddle through it as we usually do. All right, so this is going to be my dad's biscuit making recipe, and then we're going to turn it into cinnamon rolls. So he's got flour, and I will put I'll say the amounts, but I'll also put them in the comments. Okay. So far, that's 2 cups. Into the sifter. The sifter's in a bowl. That mixes your
2.5 cups.
2.5 cups. Yeah. Now, see, usually he would guesstimate it, but for you kids, he's using the 1/2 cup. So that's 2.5 cups flour in the sifter.
Mm-hmm. I put 2 tablespoons of baking powder per cup.
Oh, we got to do math now. Oh, see, did you see that little thing on the lid too? You rake the spoon across that to make it level. Mm-hmm. All right, two tablespoons of baking powder per cup. All right, and then he's adding some salt.
Teaspoon of salt.
1 teaspoon of salt. So 2.5 cups of flour. We'll have to do the math on that baking powder. 5 tablespoons of baking powder, a teaspoon of salt, and then he sifted it together. So that blends your ingredients. Blends your dry ingredients. Look at that pretty mountain of flour. Funny little story, when my mom was going to college to become a home ec teacher, she didn't know how to make biscuits by a recipe, which is what you have to do when you're a home ec teacher. You have to teach it by a recipe, because her mom just kept the ingredients like this in the bowl the whole time. Yeah, she said she went through quite a few batches of biscuits, and I am not a good biscuit maker, so that's why we're making this video. All right. So a little extra stirring, and you're kind of making a hole in the middle of the flour for your other ingredients. So Dad uses butter flavored Crisco. I'm just going to turn that around so you see it. But you can also use oil or regular butter or margarine. But butter flavored Crisco is the most yummiest. So how much of this?
We're going to use 1/2 cup.
1/2 cup. Now, just like my dad, or maybe because of my dad, I don't always use a recipe, and I don't always measure. I measure to eye, but we're doing this for you. So 1/2 cup Crisco goes in the hole.
pastry blender, but I use a potato masher, which does a good thorough job.
And then you're just mashing the Crisco in to the flour. I feel like I could do this. I'm gonna try this. Now I have the video. So you're mashing that in. Stir it, mash it. Is the pastry blender the little, what's the little round half moon one? That's that. Okay.
We have one somewhere.
I remember it.
Don't measure either.
All right, here's where some eye in it and guesswork comes in. This is
I'm going to measure it today.
Buttermilk. Okay.
So we'll know how much.
All right. We're going to do this just for you kids at home making biscuits.
I'm going to pour a cup in here.
Start with a cup.
Start with a cup. And then we'll use what we need.
We're going to pour that.
Pour about that much. That's about half a cup.
Sort of make a pool in the middle. Start with a half cup.
Start mixing.
And then you're just mixing it with a regular big spoon. Because you don't want it
use a
soupy.
Spurtle if you wanted to.
A spurtle. And it's fun to say.
And a wooden spoon. You could use that.
All right.
This is easy.
All right. And then you put a little more because it wasn't.
We're going to need all of that.
All of that.
And possibly
now if you
more.
Yeah, and if you didn't have buttermilk, you could use regular milk with lemon, or no? It does.
Well, you could just use regular milk, but buttermilk makes a better batter.
Better batter with buttermilk. Hey, that's a commercial.
Yeah.
So you're just trying to get, now see how it's kind of mobbing together. We're going to need a little more buttermilk because we still got some dry ingredients.
We'll put another half cup. Just so we'll know how much we've used.
Okay. And now that's kind of making a ball of dough. A little more.
It's going to take all of that. So
that was
if that's
a cup and a half.
Yep.
Hope you guys are writing this down so I can put it in the comments or the description. All right, there we go. So it's moist, but it's not soggy.
Yeah. We're just looking for a good consistency to roll it out on a floured bowl. Floured board, I mean. And
all right, so if you were just making biscuits, that's all the ingredients you would need. And now we're going to roll it out. Coffee's ready.
we have a clean counter here. And clean hands. And we just put flour. Bring the flour out on there.
So if you had a large cutting board, if you didn't want to do this,
I use that sometimes.
but you flour it nicely, and then you scooping the dough out. So the dough is kind of sticky.
Yeah.
Which actually, as a kid, I really enjoyed doing stuff like this because it's like working with Play-Doh or clay. Which is the fun thing about cooking. It's half science, half crafty. Okay, so now you got your big dough ball.
Yeah, we put a little flour around so you can handle it to...
Sprinkle some on the top.
Yeah, sprinkle a little on top so you don't really work biscuits like you do bread dough.
Because then they'll get tough. Yeah. All right, so you're kind of gentle with it.
Your mom taught me that.
And her batches and batches of biscuits.
Yeah.
All right.
So.
Did you know how to make biscuits before, Mom? Or
I'm not sure.
Oh, okay.
Probably.
It's a group effort. Which is funny because you're the one that always makes the biscuits.
Well,
because she taught you and then she moved on. That's an educator's job.
So we're just gonna spread it out fairly thin.
Okay. It's like a half-inch, quarter-inch.
Yeah, about half-inch. No, a little less than half-inch. You don't want it too thick.
But you just kind of patted it out.
What we have to do is put some sugar and cinnamon and butter, melted butter on it, and roll it.
All right, so if you were making biscuits, you would just use the biscuit cutter at this point.
Yeah, I wouldn't roll it out quite this thin.
All right, if it was biscuits, you might go to a half-inch and then just use the little cutter. Okay. But now this is making biscuit cinnamon rolls.
Yeah. Smaller pieces is easier to melt it.
All right, so half stick of butter, cut it into pieces, melt in microwave.
Got half a stick of butter. We're gonna use the pastry brush and brush it on.
Paint the biscuit batter with butter. It kind of does look like clay, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Or ceramics. Okay, so now we got brown sugar.
This is light brown. You could use either. And I put about that much at a time and spread it.
Okay.
I don't measure the sugar, but you don't want the sugar too thick. But you can look. This is going to cover at least half of it.
Okay, so just kind of spread it out so it's
spread it out
on top of the butter, on top of the dough. Just a nice thin layer.
Yeah.
Where everything is coated. All right.
Yeah, it's going to take about that much more.
All right, for the recipe, I will say
about a cup.
About a cup, because that's covering it. All right, cool. Look at that, out to the edges.
I'm just going to.
All right, now this is
have to be exact here, so
cinnamon.
Yeah.
All right. So he's just kind of shaking
and
it.
Shake it, and then when I finish, I can take a spoon and smooth it. So it's just.
So if you have cinnamon in a shaker or my parents use a lot of cinnamon for health benefits. So they have it in bulk. So he's just shaking. He's shaking the spoon, but you could, if you have a normal person's cinnamon, you're just going to put a nice coating of it.
Yeah.
And cinnamon can be a little spicy, so not too much. And then
I spread it out. So
spread it out so it mixes.
Too much in one place.
Yeah, and it mixes with the sugar a little bit.
Okay. Now we're ready to roll it.
Literally. Haha, punny. Ready to roll.
And biscuit dough is a little bit more difficult to roll than if you made yeast.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
Cinnamon rolls. They're a little.
So you could use a spatula to kind of get it started if you needed.
Yeah.
You're just sort of gently rolling it over.
Under it. I don't want too much flour, but you're going to have enough to handle it.
Okay. All right. You can see it's tearing a little bit, but that's okay. You just smush it back together.
The way biscuits do. Sort of bring it together.
Pinch it. All right. So now you've got a cinnamon roll loaf of biscuit dough.
Do it like that.
Roll it over. Okay.
And like a log.
All right, and did we oil the pan, or we need to?
Yeah. And
okay, we're doing.
I'm gonna melt it.
A fourth a cup of coconut oil, but you could also use butter or olive oil to grease the pan. Or avocado oil. Those are what my dad uses. Coconut oil does give it a little extra yummy taste. Okay. Coated. All right. So
just under.
We're gonna try to make it to about 15.
Under half.
Then you're just cutting the log about.
So this is going to be in 8s.
All right. Kind of getting some flour back on your knife so it'll slide through. You don't want it to mush up too much. And I think this is a serrated bread knife, which is maybe as old as I am. Just saying. Take care. If you have good knives, they'll last a long time. All right, so there's one. And it was about maybe a little less than 1 inch, or about 1 inch thick.
Maybe 3/4 of an inch.
3/4 of an inch. So you're kind of looking at your log, and then you divide it into pieces, and then you're just cutting it to make them kind of even, because you want them all a similar height so that they will cook evenly. Or so my dad has told me. So I've heard.
Bake.
All right, now technically you should do this first while you're mixing, so then your oven is nice and preheated, but...
Well, it doesn't take this one long to...
Oh yeah, this is
put
nice.
It on
400?
400? Means I cut the rest into 8 pieces.
All right. All right, so here is the pan. You got 15 cinnamon rolls. It may make a few more, a few less. You could, but they can be touching, right?
Yeah. Oh yes, it can be.
Yeah.
I'm gonna put just a little butter on top.
All the leftover butter on top for extra buttery goodness.
We'll have to melt a little more for the topping.
Okay. You put the topping on after? After they bake? Okay. Yeah. So how long are these going to bake?
Maybe 15.
15 minutes?
Until they're golden brown.
All right. That means more coffee for me while they're golden browning. Okay. Is it ready? Is it going in? Well, it's already hot. You were right. All right, and we'll set the timer for 15 minutes. All right, we may have a blooper, so I'm pausing as we were writing down the recipe. It was supposed to be teaspoons of baking powder. And I may have said tablespoons, but Mom wants you to know that if you are increasing your recipe or changing it, 1 tablespoon equals 3 teaspoons, not 2. This could be very important. Thank you, Jane. That's our home ec major who taught Dad how to make biscuits. Okay. Back to all right, so here are the golden brown cinnamon roll biscuits, and we are making the topping, which we started out with the other half of the stick of butter melted.
Which is a 1/4 cup.
A 1/4 cup. And what's that?
1 cup of powdered sugar.
1 cup of powdered sugar.
Confectioner sugar.
Mix it.
And you're going to add a 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract.
Vanilla. 1/2 teaspoon.
And we're going to add enough. You could put heavy whipping cream. You can put almond milk, which I'm using, or you can use 2% milk, just milk.
Just milk.
And
how much was that? Just enough.
Just enough to get a consistent, spreadable consistency. And actually, I probably was a tablespoon.
So maybe a tablespoon.
And a good rule is, if you're adding a liquid to powdered sugar like this, you do it 1 tablespoon at a time.
And it can make a difference, the tablespoon versus the teaspoon.
Oh yes.
So if I said that during the video,
And we take our
All right, pastry brush.
pastry brush that we use to brush on the butter. And brush it generously.
And so the biscuit rolls are hot, and it's going to make it melt and go down in the cracks and crevices. And I tell y'all, this is my favorite breakfast. Although he also makes a really good coffee cake, so I may have to film that too.
Not today.
But not today, yeah. One breakfast at a time. We haven't had nearly enough coffee to be baking this early as it is. Look at that beautifulness. And we are going to go taste them, because I know you won't believe me until you see me eat it, how delicious it really is. Here is the finished product, and I wrote the recipe down. I will type it in the description. But you know, we're not done until I'm cutting left-handed. Let's see if I'm ambidextrous. Perfect. The bottom is a little crunchy. The top is a little soft and sweet. Good job, Dad.
Okay.
And thanks, as always, to my mom and dad for a lovely breakfast. Thank you for learning with Miss Roseberry. Remember, in that one part with the baking powder, teaspoons, not tablespoons. It's going to make a huge difference. And I'll write it in the comments. But I think I said tablespoons. He might have said teaspoons. This is why coffee is important. All right, I'm going to eat breakfast. Thank you for learning with Miss Roseberry. Have fun making biscuit cinnamon rolls. They are delicious.